Media Servis. Ekskluzivno.
Okay, we have here our guest, British Ambassador to Croatia, Mr. Andrew Dalgleish. Thank you for coming. This is our second, if I'm not mistaken, second time.
That's right, yes.
On the interview. First of all, we have a lot of interesting subjects that are currently developing. First of all, until it's fresh for our listeners that are not up to date, what is the current state with Brexit and British and European divorce?
Well, at the moment, negotiations are going on in Brussels. The Prime Minister, Theresa May, had lengthy and very positive meetings yesterday with Jean-Claude Juncker, and those were really taking us closer to that agreement that we need at the December European Council. So very positive. Mr. Juncker himself came out saying he is absolutely confident that we are going to have agreement at that European Council to move on to the next stage of negotiations. What does that mean? It means that the European Union member states, the 27, not including the UK, have said that we need to be able to show that we are making sufficient progress on some of the issues about our separation from the European Union before we can begin to talk about some of the issues about our future relationship with the European Union once the UK has left. And that's what's going on at the moment. The important point is that we both parties, both sides, need to have that kind of discussion about the future as soon as possible if we're going to have a Brexit that is predictable and manageable, so that both sides, businesses on both sides, governments on both sides, government agencies on both sides, can prepare for the future. So this is why we're putting so much emphasis, we being the UK and the European Union, putting so much emphasis on making that progress now so that we can begin to talk about the next stage as soon as possible.
So the specific obstacles that are still on the way of reaching an agreement are not yet settled. You know, the divorce settlement, the bill, whether Britain is going to stay in common market, and that things are not yet settled.
Not yet, that's right, and that's why these discussions are going on quite intensively in Brussels now, with a view to reaching a settlement, or as close to a settlement so that we can agree that we're now ready to move on to the next stage. Doing that by the European Council on the 14th and 15th of December. And the outstanding issues, really, they fall into three main categories. One is how we will treat our citizens, whether they are UK citizens in the EU or EU citizens in the UK. What we're going to do to make sure that their lives are their livelihoods are protected, their rights are protected in a future relationship, so that as we leave the EU, suddenly they don't find themselves in a precarious situation. So it's about people, and that's been right at the heart of the negotiation all the way through, how we look after our people. That's one issue where we're very close to finalising agreement on that. Another issue is how much money the UK owes as an EU member state that will make sure we pay, so that no, as the Prime Minister said in her speech in Florence, no member state should find itself worrying that it's going to have to receive less or pay more as a consequence of the UK leaving the European Union. And that discussion is progressing as well. And then the third issue is how we will manage the border between, it's the one land border that the UK has between Northern Ireland and Ireland, where both sides have said we're really keen to avoid having any kind of hard border, any infrastructure in place that makes it difficult for the citizens of Ireland or the citizens of the UK in Northern Ireland to cross that border or to transact business over that border. And that's another issue that's outstanding, that's requiring more work. But as I say, Mr. Juncker himself and the Prime Minister reported on yesterday's meeting saying things are going well. We need to do a bit more work, but things are going well, and they remain confident that we'll have that agreement.
How are Brexit negotiations influencing British and Croatian relations? Diplomatic relations?
We talk about the negotiations regularly on a bilateral level. There are some key interests for Croatia that are unique. There's one I can think of that's unique, which is the fact that the UK at the moment still has what are called transitional controls over the rights of Croatian workers to come to the UK to work. Those controls are in place, like they are in other countries, in Austria and in the Netherlands, for example. But what will happen when the UK leaves the European Union? Will those controls stay as they are, or what's going to happen? This is obviously really important that we settle this, and I'm talking regularly with the Croatian government about how we will address that issue. It's very clear that the intention of the UK is that all EU citizens will be treated the same in the future. There won't be a distinction if you're Croatian or if you're French or if you're German. The intention is that all will be treated the same. What we have to figure out is how we get from where we are now to delivering that intention. So regular discussions with between Croatia and the UK, but positive, because at the end of the day, both our countries don't want to do damage to the European Union and want to see a healthy bilateral relationship in the future.
Now, let's cross over to some of the more bigger subjects. Are British and American relations at a turning point? Not just because of the latest Twitter or internet spat between Prime Minister and American President, but because of the differences in views of foreign policy. America has always been, looked at as a world police officer, and they have been controlling issues. But now it leaves Britain as the only supporter of those values, like climate change and some foreign policy issues. Are happening? Is there happening big differences? Is there some sort of partition between America and Britain in this view?
It's true to say that the relationship the UK has with the United States is exceptional. It's very special. I don't think there's a bilateral relationship between two countries that is as deep and as meaningful as the one between the United States and the United Kingdom. Why? Because you have two global powers that have so much history in common, but that share values. So the relationship is a special one. There's no doubt about that. The point about special relationships is that if you disagree, you say so. And the idea that you preserve the special nature of the relationship by agreeing with everything that the other party says, compromising your own values, accepting unquestioningly what the other party says, this is wrong. I mean, that's not a special relationship at all. And that's not the kind of relationship that we enjoy with the United States. So when the Prime Minister finds that she needs to say something out loud and publicly about, for example, extremist material on the internet, then she will say it. And she's said that very clearly indeed, and continues to say it. When she says that she believes that the Paris Agreement is the best way for implementing action to tackle dangerous climate change, she says it because she means it. And she wants the United States to hear that. It's important that we say that to them because it's true. So are relations at a turning point? Absolutely not. The relationship is as strong as ever and will continue to be strong. But it's not going to stop either my Prime Minister saying what she believes to be true or the President of the United States saying what he believes to be true. The relationship is stronger than those disagreements or those little squabbles that we might see going on. The relationship is bigger than that and is going to endure.
Did you find Croatian Prime Minister's comments about London Court's decision on Ivica Todorić's extradition process? Did you find them to be an attempt of interference in judiciary system of Britain?
I haven't seen anything that the Prime Minister said that I would interpret in any way as interfering with the judicial process.
I mean, there were some political figures here in Croatia who were accusing him. Well, you just interfered with the judicial system of Britain. How do you dare, and stuff like that. Maybe that was just political,
Certainly from our point of view, I know the Prime Minister is a lawyer by training. He understands how these things work. This is a judicial process. So we now have in place a timeline for a court hearing, which will be in April. And the Croatian government understands that. The cooperation between the two governments and our police agencies and our prosecuting agencies has been excellent, but it's all been in the context of delivering a judicial process, not trying to bring political influence one way or another. That's the whole point. It's a judicial process. So Mr. Todoric is there still in London. He's described himself as a citizen of London. I'm sure he's figured out by now that almost every other citizen he meets isn't wearing an electronic tag and doesn't have to report to a police station 3 times a week. But he's waiting his hearing in his court, in the court. That will be in April, and the process will decide what happens next.
And for the last, you've been here a year and a half. You've been a first post-Brexit British ambassador to Croatia. How do you like it here?
Well, the country is fantastic to live in. The quality of life is outstanding. My family are really happy here. We have discovered how much more there is that we haven't yet seen of Croatia. We felt initially we'd been getting out and about and we're seeing everything. No, there's so much more to see that we haven't seen. So from a personal point of view, it's fantastic. From a professional point of view, the desire to build that bilateral relationship, regardless of Brexit, the stuff that we can do together that doesn't depend on the European Union, the appetite is really there in my country and in Croatia. So it's really fulfilling for me as well.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you for coming to our studio.
Thank you for the invitation.
Medija servis. Ekskluzivno.